Welcome to another episode of Inspire People, Impact Lives. Today I have Mike Victorson, President and CEO of M3 Insurance, joining me on the show. And today's topic is all about the importance of earning trust to inspire people and impact lives. So earning trust, what makes a great leader? You're probably thinking it's something buzzword worthy like confidence or maybe vision or emotional intelligence. You hear about that one all the time nowadays. For sure, all those are good qualities for a leader to have, but the answer is actually trustworthiness. The question, can I trust you, is always on our minds whenever we interact with people. Studies suggest that in order to figure out whether or not someone is trustworthy, we analyze their words and their deeds to find out answers to two questions. Do you have good intentions towards me? Are you a friend or a foe? And do you have what it takes to act on those intentions? Today, we'll talk about how we find the answers to both those important questions. Decades of research show that we are highly tuned in to the warmth and competence of those around us. The warmth is being friendly, kind, loyal, empathetic. It is taken as evidence that you have good intentions toward others. Your competence, are you intelligent, creative, skilled, effective, is taken as evidence that you can act on your intentions if you want to, and competent people are therefore valuable allies. Less competent people are objects of compassion or scorn. When your team trusts you as a leader, it increases commitment to team goals, communication improves, and ideas flow more freely, increasing creativity and productivity. Like Stephen Covey says, the speed of trust. Perhaps most important, in the hands of a trusted leader, employees are more comfortable with change and more willing to embrace a new vision. When your team doesn't trust you, you don't get their best effort, and you'll find yourself unable to inspire, influence, and create real change. So now getting to Mike. Mike is responsible for the strategic direction and vision of M3 Insurance, Wisconsin's largest broker, ranked 55th largest in America, and celebrating this year in 2018 their 50th anniversary. He is passionate about the community involvement and making an impact on a wide variety of industry and charitable organizations. Mike has been with M3 his entire career. He's worked all his way up through 8 positions in the company, ranging from administration mail to telemarketing to service to sales and now management. Mike, while working your way up through M3, I'm sure you learned a lot about the importance of gaining trust in others. So I'm excited to hear how the self-proclaimed Youper becomes the CEO at M3. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It's good to be here.
So tell us about this Youper thing and how you became the CEO working through 8 positions now.
Well, the Youper to CEO route for me was a fun journey. It started up in Escanaba, and I found my way at a small school in Illinois, and through that process met some people here in Madison. And one of those people was Lauren Mortensen, the founder of our company. Met him on a complete whim, and after doing that, he convinced me to quit my dream of going to law school. I grew up watching Corbin Burnson and LA Law, and my mom wanted me to be that character. And so gave it a shot, and after he hired me, he basically gave me the chance to deliver the mail, carry people's bags, and learn the business from the ground up. And the effort it takes to do that, and hopefully modeling the type of humility and how you treat people like you treat yourself, was one of the things that allowed me to learn the business, grow, take on new assignments, have the trust of people who were seriously and considerably my elder at the time, so that I could get an opportunity one day at leadership. And started to work my way into leadership in my late 20s. And we had some timing issues in our organization, and our board thought that I would be the right person to succeed Charlie Meldrum, our second CEO. And so in 2003, I became president. In 2005, CEO. So that was kind of an abridged version. As you were reading all those descriptions, though, man, I don't know if I was able to incorporate all those things on my ride up, but maybe I got 1 or 2 of them right so that I could earn enough trust to become CEO.
Well, I would say that very few leaders get all of it right and all
Amen
of that right.
That.
I mean, it's a work in progress. So I was curious, as I said before we started on the show, we had a similar path growing up in the business and taking over for extremely successful CEOs in their own right. and myself at Northwestern Mutual and yourself at M3, what was it when you took over as CEO that you feel you did really well to earn the trust of whether it be elders, people that had come before you that are still there, people that you're bringing in and attracting to the business? Because as we know, those existing relationships you had that were just employee to employee are now employer or boss to employee. And the moment your contract turned to CEO, you're now the boss. So every relationship got recontracted. Changed. So what do you feel you did really well to earn the trust and for them to buy into your vision going forward?
People have asked me that question before. I've never been able to really respond this formally. So I kind of appreciate the opportunity. I think there's a huge opportunity to be authentic in your relationships. And as you described the elements of earning trust, that is something that I feel like I was able to embody at a young age on my way up. And so that when I had an opportunity to lead, people had that as their basis. And so what do I mean by being authentic? It meant that, and it means that in some ways what you see is what you get. I'm not afraid and wasn't afraid to admit if I had ideas and literally involve you in making those things better. I wouldn't steal your ideas. I would promote them. If I didn't know something, I would admit it. It's funny when you have a chance to tell somebody what you don't think you're good at or what you don't know. Often it causes them to lean in a little bit because when they see that that's authentic, it's trustworthy. It helps build a relationship. I think also the other thing that I was willing to do early, and I still do it now in my leadership journey, is I like to share information and listen and involve people in the solution. I find that most people don't trust people who might have a God or Savior complex or somebody who thinks that they have all of the ideas or all of the solutions. They like to be included in where we're going, or if it affects them, they like to be consulted with and truly listened to, have their feedback reasoned and weighed, and then cut straight. Hey, we included that in the solution, or I'm sorry, we can't make that happen, but here's why. Does that make any sense?
It makes a ton of sense. Actually, as you were saying that, there's a principle out there right now where leadership used to be, like a symphony and orchestra, where you're the person up there directing the whole shebang. Now it's far more like jazz music, where everyone's playing off each other. And what you're describing is that collaboration that people really appreciate nowadays. They're not going to follow you just because your title says CEO or president. They're going to follow you because they believe in the vision and the direction you're going.
It's so funny you say that. I'm chuckling because when we have new leaders in the organization, one of the things that we almost have to coach and guard against is because you have a promotion now or a new title, hasn't literally earned you a thing. We were struggling with our management team a little bit a few years ago with some people that were new in their space, and they wanted to address as a group the issue of trust, our subject today. And it was, I think we need to work on trust. And part of the way that I challenged our group is, well, people don't trust you. And trust is something that you'll be continuously earning throughout your journey. Even if you stack 10 or 15 really good decisions on top of one another, understand that the 16th, you're still in the process of earning trust. All the things that you've done to show your competence, your ability to listen, again, things that would be a review if I just started talking about them now, you have to continuously do in how you lead and engage and interact with people so that you have their trust. It's fragile. Mm-hmm. Because in that 16th or that 20th initiative you lead on or decision that you make, if you go it alone, if you betray a confidence, if you steal an idea, if you don't consult with people, if you don't bring them along with you, they don't trust your decision.
No.
And their trust in you starts to erode. It's just one of those things where earning trust is something that you never stop doing.
And how fast, as you just hit on there, how fast it can erode with one misstep. And so just continuing to work towards that daily is huge. So this earning trust topic, was there a point in your career, in your life, an age or a position possibly that you realized that it was just super important?
Well, early in my professional career, I won't do the Abe Lincoln story for me, but early in my professional career, one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if it was unique to M3 at the time, it probably is something that is at work in a lot of workplaces or family dynamics. Sometimes it can be hard to have a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. To say things that can be difficult, whether it's an opinion you need to express, an observation you need to make, something that you're struggling with. I love the expression, can we clear the air? Because often there's air that needs to be cleared between people, and it's not, whether it's at home or at work. For whatever reason, the way that I've been knit together, I've been able to do that from a very young age. And that attribute, maybe, if you'd call it that, is something that I lean on a lot. I still lean on to this day, that if something is amiss or awry, then it's time for some authentic, candid conversation about what it is we're either working on or what's getting in the way. And the ability to talk about what's hard, again, these words keep coming up. It involves being humble. It involves the ability to listen. Sometimes it involves, extreme confidentiality. But if you can stay true to those things, you can earn people's trust, and they'll give it to you.
Yeah, one of the things we practice around here is no triangular conversations. And, Chad and I were talking about the difference between no gossip, and triangular conversation. The no gossip thing is really hard to control. Because there's always that. There's always conversation. There's always water cooler talk. What you can control is expecting from your leadership team to not talk behind others' backs. And if there is an issue, if I come to you, Mike, and say, you know what, this Chad guy, I just don't know about him. And whatever comes out of my mouth next doesn't matter, because what should be happening is me having a conversation with Chad, not with you. And you, as another leader in my organization, saying to me, hey, have you talked to Chad about that yet?
Amen.
Because once we can come to each other and address what you said, whether clear the air, address the elephant in the room, whatever it may be, things are going to go much more smoothly. You engage in those triangular conversations, and behind each other's back, and trust will erode real quick.
It does. And what it really, I think, illustrates your example is how for most people, because it's rampant within adults, we wonder sometimes if we watch it happen among teenagers, is that something that's just confined in kids? No, my goodness gracious. Adults are just as guilty at the gossip, the triangulated conversation, the not putting the best construction on someone's action or words as kids are. And I think what it shows, again, is for most people a real difficulty confronting someone in a good way, in a kind way. Again, some of the words you used in the intro, Josh, so that people can literally put defenses down and have the kind of conversation they need to have, so that they can move forward. It's interesting when you were talking about that example too. I think what happens to leaders a lot is we want to help. Mm-hmm. Leaders, saying it in a different way, we want to fix problems.
Yep.
And oftentimes people come to us with relationship type issues that would involve trust, and they want us to fix them. I think one of the most powerful things we can do as leaders is ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the process of asking questions, I think it helps people with self-discovery. I haven't thought about that. I haven't had that conversation. That's a different way to think about it. I think sometimes in our questions, we can actually put the better construction on the person who may be being talked about or triangulated in that moment. Oh, I didn't think that Josh would have thought about it that way. I think Julie wasn't, I should have given her the benefit of the doubt. In a way that doesn't necessarily mean that we're cheerleading unnecessarily for our colleague or sticking up for them unnecessarily, just causing the person to think.
And truly seeking to understand where they're coming from. Yeah.
That's
100% agree. And I don't think it changes no matter how good the leaders get. I just at a mentor meeting with one of my leaders yesterday, and he's very good. He's very good. And he was talking about another leader that he's lost a little bit of trust in. And he was right in his reason for it. But I said, have you had a conversation with him yet? And he goes, And he just, kind of shakes his head because he knew exactly what he should have done,
Right.
and hadn't done it yet. And and he did, but didn't appreciate me calling him out about it, because we have that culture, and we know that, and he knows they're both very busy. They know they should have had this conversation. They haven't had it yet.
Well, Josh, what it exposes is truly our human nature, and anyone who, myself included, just because I'm being offered the opportunity to be on your podcast doesn't mean I've got this figured out. You made a humble statement about this earlier, even I think in the podcast, and so if any of us thinks we've arrived in this issue, I think we're fooling ourselves. We have to constantly be on guard. We have to constantly be working at this. We have to constantly challenge our awareness so that we can model the type of behavior, especially as leaders, that allows other people to say, yeah, I trust him. Mike may not do everything right. Mike may not be the smartest guy in the room. Mike may take risks that doesn't work out. Mike sometimes may have to do things that he can't bring me completely along with due to confidentiality or other business reasons. But I trust him. I trust that he cares about me.
And I know
he
he's
has my
got my
best
back.
interest. That's right.
That's right. So you mentioned as growing up from a kid and kind of always being in that nature of feeling like you got to earn trust. Was it always easy for you? Were there patches that, or maybe a major mistake in earning trust that was a big lesson for you?
Absolutely. One of the biggest pieces of self-awareness that I had to learn, actually through some consulting that I was able to receive some coaching as a young leader, was sometimes in an excessive need to be me. My authenticity was actually quite insensitive. And so when I was growing up, sometimes even in Madison now, if someone doesn't know me, I have to actually be careful so that they don't get the wrong impression. I'm very comfortable with who I am, and I'm genuinely interested in people and getting to know them, what makes them tick. And I have almost a fatal flaw of wanting to help. I was joking before about, I can be absolutely a yes man. Well, if someone doesn't know me very well, that can be misconstrued. It can be taken the wrong way. And so I've had to literally learn to slow my roll, to pick spots, to not necessarily be as radically authentic as might be my personality. Hey, Mike, that's not an appropriate subject to bring up with somebody the first time you meet them. See where I'm going?
Yep, absolutely.
And I literally, as a kid and when I was a younger professional, I struggled with that. And I gave people sometimes the wrong impression that would get in the way of potentially being able to trust me. And so I had to learn, and it was this is a self-effacing thing to talk about, but it was a big learning componentry for me in my leadership.
That's good.
Slow down, Vic. That's my nickname, sorry. Slow down. They may not be ready from a relationship standpoint for that.
Yeah.
So that's probably that's a big kind of mea culpa.
Yeah,
what I've learned about earning trust.
I actually identify a lot with that. I've been accused of similar things. I think one of the things I was thinking about as you were bringing that up was how well our spouses can know us and really mirror for us. And one of the things I was thinking as you were talking about that is, as a fixer, which I am as well, people don't always want you to fix. Sometimes they just want you to listen. And so I've learned to ask the question with my spouse, Jenna, like, when she says something and I almost want to jump to fix, I actually slow down and say, is this a situation where you want me to listen or fix?
Amen.
It's just pause and then be able to go, because I need to know which mode I'm in, because my natural inclination, my bias is to fix, which it sounds like yours is. But sometimes people they don't want that. They want us to listen.
Well, and to take it back to a work example of where you can earn people's trust and they can want to come back to you potentially is if you're a good listener and you ask good questions and you can keep confidences and you can refrain from taking credit for their work, then they'll see themselves move forward and their career move forward in a really natural way. And if they get a chance to experience that with you as a part of their team, they trust that.
Mm-hmm.
And they want you to stay on their team. And they'll bring more things to you in the future. Hey, can I bounce this off you? Hey, I was thinking about. And what they can trust is Josh will shoot me straight. Josh won't steal my ideas. Josh won't take credit for my work. Josh will help me make it better. Josh will support me when I'm not around. And when those things start to happen on a regular basis, you earn trust.
That's really good. Have you, now shifting a little bit, can you recall a time possibly you were trying to move, because you have a large organization, you were trying to, maybe it was early on, maybe it's been more recent, where you're trying to move a strategic project, vision, something, where you're trying to alter course, and maybe there wasn't enough trust in others yet, or you had to go and elicit trust from a bunch of other leaders to get to that change? Or how, can you think of an example in that route where you were really successful, or maybe even one where you really failed?
Yeah, I will be candid on that piece. It's easier to think of the stuff that didn't work.
Yeah, it typically is, right?
Easier to think of the stuff that didn't work than the stuff that worked. Two examples that come to mind is when I was in the process of becoming the CEO of the business, I had been in a leadership role for 3 or 4 years before that, a senior leadership role. And the outgoing president, CEO at the time, Charlie Meldrum, was a wonderful mentor to me. And he absolutely, for me and others on our team, propped us up and supported us in our dream to grow the company. Well, we redlined the car. We spent way too much money. We made way too many changes. We reorganized the business, rebranded it, spent money to the point that it impacted things like our retirement plan contribution and our bonuses. I turned over the entire board of directors, restructured the company. So I woke up one day and I literally had the one and only anxiety attack I've ever had in my life. And I still remember it was in 2007. And we're a privately held company, and I had to go before our shareholders and talk about where we were going, and it wasn't pretty. Mm-hmm. And I still remember Karen was getting ready for bed, and I literally walked in and I put my hand on the sink and I was trying to catch my breath, and she thought I was goofing around. And it was a wonderful wake-up call for me of, Mike, you need to trust your colleagues more. And when you trust, you will earn trust. When you give trust, you'll receive it back. The other one that was we recovered fine, and all that ended up being a great investment to propel our business. But in 2008, hubris probably bit me the most as a senior leader in the organization. We had expanded our company, and we thought, you know what? Why don't we go to Denver? Great city. We've done it 3 or 4 other times in Wisconsin in places like Wausau. Why couldn't we make it in Denver?
I mean, a few states away. I mean, that seems natural.
And, being that it's almost perfectly 10 years ago, there was this little thing in October of 2008 that, they've made movies about and written about. And literally, we opened our doors on October 1st of 2008. Well, 3 years later, after losing millions of dollars, we shut down our Denver office. And something that really was, I think, a part of me earning trust with our team was not being afraid to admit mistakes, not being afraid to shut something down, and talking very candidly and authentically, there's that word again, about what I and what our organization had learned. Now, in that case, I had brought people with me. I didn't make that decision by myself. But I think a key part of my leadership journey and how people could come to trust me is it was my job as the CEO at the time to lead on why we were leaving Denver. And I had to do that. But that was a big moment.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being vulnerable on that, because that's can be a big mistake and hard to talk about. I'm sure going back to those.
No, it's a running joke when people want to make fun of me internally at M3. Hey Vic, I don't know. Should we go to Denver? I mean, it's really
well, it's good you
sauce.
can laugh about it now.
Yeah, it's good shade.
That's good. One of the things you touched on, trusting your people first, trusting your other leaders first. We as human beings have such a huge tendency for reciprocity. And we're just naturally inclined to want to do favors, gifts, or work to promote those that promote us. And so I think that's just so so true. I mean, whether it's any relationship you have, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your employees, colleagues, other leaders, you have to trust them first.
You do. If you don't model what it looks like to trust other people and actually do it, I think it's fairly naive to think that you should just receive their trust because of, I don't know, who you are, what you look like, how tall you are, how long you've been in business, what your title is, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Because kind of like what you were talking about with performing jazz, you think about this workforce now and what's happening in American business, how much more and how much more quickly people are productive on teams as a part of our millennial generation that's in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care that you're the CEO.
Mm-mm.
They care about, hey, man, are we making music together or not? Because if you're going to walk over every time and take my instrument from me, or if you're not going to give me opportunities for the solo,
I'm out.
Why do I want to be on your team? I'm
Yeah.
out. And so it's we're preparing for a meeting, and sometimes I like to look back and use it to make points around the future. And it's, again, because it's the fall of 2018, when you do the kind of perfect symmetry of a decade, the October, November, December timeframe of 2008 was historic in America. This upstart Barack Obama becomes our president.
Mm-hmm.
We have the worst financial crisis since 1929. When you look demographically, we're having these big shifts of boomers and Xers in the economy, and it's a great moment because I heard last week, you probably know this better given your business, Josh, we've either been on the longest bull market run or close to it.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, officially.
March 9th of 2009, I think the Wall Street Journal wrote a week or so ago, these are unprecedented times. And so how do we look at these? I loved your topic for today because to me it's kind of like a back to basics for leadership. How do we look at these back to basics things to help make sure that we don't waste the opportunity that this market is providing to us with this awesome new workforce?
And you think about how little clients, people, just society, Americans as a whole, we distrusted back in 2008.
Think about that,
Like,
what it did to trust.
I mean, we as advisors are talking clients off a ledge. I'm sure you guys talking clients, losing clients, not because you lost them because of relationship, because they went out of business. I mean, just awful times of distrust. I mean, we lost trust in our government officials, and what happened with the mortgage crisis, and then are they going to bail this out? All this stuff, and now we look where we're at. And I mean, can you imagine taking ourselves back to 2008? Could we possibly even imagine this day today?
No.
No. Everyone thought it was the end of the world, the end of the dollar. Every commercial, every other commercial we saw was about gold and precious metals because the end of the dollar was near.
So do you remember this, Josh? One of the expressions that came out of that whole time that I haven't necessarily heard as much the last 3 or 4 years. Do you remember this expression? The new normal.
Yeah.
That was rampant after that. Oh, it's the new normal. Economic growth, it's going to be this. No, it's the new normal.
Stock
market's going to do.
Yeah.
The new normal. Well, yeah, thankfully, the resiliency of the country, the economy, the workforce, has pulled us out. And I think my guess is if I got a chance to hang out with you and talk to you about your practice and the businesses and the business owners that you work with, similar to ours, we're just watching them do great things and try great things. But if you're in an advisory role, if you're in a supplier role, people are putting trust in you that you will be the person that they think you're going to be. This flood that we just had here in Madison, we've had quite a few customers on this western part of Dane County that were dramatically impacted. And we're talking about family businesses where this is their baby. This is personal to them. And to hear about what they did and things that they did for the people that worked there, the customers that they had to supply product to, the promises that they made, the trust that they earned with all of those constituencies because of, again, what I would think of as their authenticity, willingness to admit what they were afraid of, what they thought they could deliver on, I think it's going to propel their businesses forward in a really dramatic way.
Yeah, some of the worst times bring out some of the best things in people, and
agreed.
And that will certainly do that. One thing, other things you touched on was, and you've kind of touched on throughout your conversation, is the transparency and authenticity. One of the things that I found about the transparency and earning trust is just whether you're giving positive feedback or negative feedback, they know where you stand.
Yeah.
And so, because there are times as a leader you're going to deliver negative feedback, it's unfortunate, part of our roles. So that transparency and not telling people what they want to hear, but what they actually need to hear, because I think we're all just part of that growth in our human nature. We want to know what you think. And as interesting as I've done review after review with plenty of people throughout my career, even as a young leader, as a sales manager at Best Buy way back when, is really people want to know if they're doing a good job or a bad job and what they can improve on in general. How has that helped you in building trust? And I know right now at a high level, you're probably doing that more with leaders than someone in the mailroom that, as you started with. But how do your leaders appreciate that transparency and authenticity from you?
Well, so that I'm not redundant with everything that you just said, I think the only thing I would add to it is having a willingness to also receive all of that feedback and commentary from them. The ability to be transparent and talk with people about what you see, good, bad, right, left, up, down. If as a leader, we're willing to have that also come back to us, and we can set up an environment that's safe enough for people to communicate directly with us as well, because they're the best people to comment on our leadership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People then get a chance to experience the wholeness of that conversation and relationship, and so I think they can trust it. We do CEO roundtables at M3, something that the board pushed me to do when I took the role back in 2005 was to treat the business like I'd never been there. So for the first 100 days, 120 days, it was meet with every person that worked at M3, go see customers, talk to our insurance companies that we represent, talk to community partners, and good, bad, ugly, right? Up, down, all those different kind of things. What do I need to know about M3? We've kept that practice going, and so now it's somewhere between 10 and 12 of those roundtables a year for me with small groups of M3ers. And what's great about it is they get an opportunity to give me very direct feedback. It's a one-question meeting. If I were the CEO of M3, this is what would you focus on and why? And they just get to comment from their perspective. And the ability as the leader of the organization to accept what they have to say and take notes and distribute them back to them and talk about it in a briefing to the organization. It's been really transformative for our business. When people come into M3 now, it's kind of funny. They chuckle. Sometimes they scratch their head. Sometimes it's a pain in their butt. We have a culture that is massively participatory. If they don't like the hot chocolate, they're going to tell you they don't like the hot chocolate. People feel like it's an environment, and they feel, I think, candidly comfortable enough and trusted enough that if they don't like something, or if they think something can get better, or if we should be thinking about something, they'll say it. That's
such a powerful idea for any business owner to incorporate what you just discussed there. But it also takes a lot of self-confidence and putting your ego aside.
Patience.
And the other thing is because if you don't exhibit that self-confidence and willingness to hear that feedback, people will shut down. And maybe they had a transformative idea that could have really changed your business, but they're too scared to give it to you because they're afraid they're going to get fired. And they have this fear of retaliation or something like, and I hear that and see that in some leaders out there, is that the security, their lack of self-confidence isn't there yet to receive sometimes tough feedback. Mm-hmm. And they really shut their people down, and then they wonder why they lost that person.
It's one thing, if I could just go a little deeper on that piece. when I reflect, just hearing you say that, kind of an instantaneous reflection, is that when I was newer in the role, I'm not going to necessarily say it was a function of age. For me, it may have been. But when I had less time in a senior leadership role, I struggled more with that. The longer I've had a chance to sit and be in the role, the better I've gotten at it, the more comfortable I've gotten at it. People at M3 would tell you, I love to challenge, I love to push, I love to question. Sometimes I know it drives them crazy, but the ability to do what you described has gotten better for me the longer I've been in the role. It would be disingenuous of me to say that, I came out of the womb, with that type of ability.
Right. So do you think a young leader can do that right away, or is it something, or is there ways that they can do that, or does it have to be developed over a seasoning?
No, I do think it's both. Because I think I had some of it for sure. I think if young leaders, one of the things I would encourage any younger leader or an organization that was going to be promoting somebody who was younger, maybe going to be leading people who were significantly older than them, or had significantly more experience, is to provide them a coach, to provide them somebody that can literally talk with them about things that they're leading on and how they're leading. It's one of my favorite expressions. It's not what, but how. And it absolutely crashes into this concept of trust. When you peel apart relationships that are broken, at least at M3, that need to be repaired, or with an insurance company or with a client, usually, like vast majority of the time, there is not a fundamental disagreement over what's happening. It almost always comes back to how. Mm-hmm. How it was being handled, how it was communicated, how it was rolled out. How did you involve people in it? How did you give them a voice to make it better? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's where a younger person, or it doesn't have to be younger, even newer in a leadership role, my encouragement would be to have that type of coach. And candidly, we've got some people now coming up in some leadership at M3, and I was just in a meeting recently where we're talking about giving them some coaching in 2019. Not because they're dumb, not because they don't get it, not because they've got no potential. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah. I believe everyone needs a coach, so I'm on the same wavelength. So
a PGA golfer's got a swing coach.
That's right.
Aaron Rodgers has a quarterback coach. He's making a couple of bucks now. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's something that would be really good for a younger leader to have.
And one of the things you touched on there, what you said is such a knowledge bomb. Like, be tougher on the problem than the person. And just a powerful group of words there. My business coach calls it PAGAO. No one knows what that acronym means unless I say it. So, powerful group of words. Be tougher on the problem than the person. Nice. And that's your how versus what, which I love. So, want to wrap up with you here on. You do so much work in the community. What is some ways that your organization or you personally have worked to build trust in the community to make M3 such a strong brand?
Well, we stick with people. Something that has been hard sometimes to do. Candidly, I also think this is one of the hardest work of the executive is to prioritize. Mm-hmm. There are so many good things and so many good ideas, so many ways to potentially deploy capital that isn't limitless, that you have to do that. And so one of the ways that we've built trust with our community partners is that we get involved beyond a check, and we get to know them deeply. Sometimes they become our customers. We spend our time with them. We try to work on solutions in the community that we live in. So our Wausau, our Green Bay, our Eau Claire, our Milwaukee, our Madison locations each have, different budgets, and they have different community partners that they work with. And one of the things that our community partners can come to trust then is that we're in it with them. And if, a little bit like what we've already talked about, if we're not going to be, we tell them. And most often we give them notice so that if they need to replace monetary philanthropy or time philanthropy from our organization, they have a chance to backfill that.
Yeah.
And so I think what people have seen is that we try to sow very generously. Something that Lauren Mortensen really imparted upon our organization was that we take so many withdrawals when you're in a service business. We just have to make deposits. And when people see us do that through our communities and through our partnerships there, they trust that we're in it for the right reasons, not the wrong ones.
Oh, that's great. So we always wrap up these with kind of interesting, because you're in a public figure, but also very busy as a CEO of a company. But how can people reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you, whether it be through business, through leadership, through community, through however you want them to get a hold of you? Mm-hmm. What would you tell our listeners to reach out to you at?
Sure. There's two ways. One is our marketing department does a terrific job with social media and our website. And Julie Redders is our director of marketing. And so she's somebody that I would encourage you to contact and leverage as a way to get into the organization in terms of making contact with us or me. Or if people feel comfortable contacting me directly, they can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or my email address, mike.victorson@m3nins.com. And if I can help, I help. If I can't, I can't. Sometimes I can get to things quickly, sometimes not. But, one of the things for me that I've always felt is, we all have had so many people pour into us. Very, very few complete meritocracy stories. I'm not trying to suggest people listening aren't working hard and haven't earned what they have.
Yeah.
But we all get where we get with the help of so many, and I'm included in that. And so, because I'm so grateful of all the help that I received along the way, I just feel like it's important to pay that forward with somebody who wants to help networking or finding a role or working on a project. Let's talk.
And we already know you'll be transparent. If it's yes,
darn
it's
right
yes.
I will.
If it's no, it's no. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you today a little bit better, Mike.
Thanks,
We'll
Josh.
have to do this again. Thanks for being on the show.